Didn't your parents own a grocery store?
Oh, up in Minnesota after they retired from Firestone, yeah, in the late 40s. But I had very little to do with that. I spent a week up there with them one time. That was another experience altogether. Dad left Firestone before they set up pension plans and whatever. And of course, he was eligible for Social Security payments, but he walked out and quit, so whatever benefits he was entitled to from Firestone were out the window, because by quitting you forfeit everything in those days. And they were going to go to California, and Mother had an idea they were going to start a chicken farm. They were going to raise chickens for money, hobby, and live in California where the weather was nice. And they stopped off in Minneapolis, Minnesota to visit with my sister and brother-in-law who were up there at the time. And Frank was running a Firestone store in Minneapolis. And so they visited, and while they were up there, they were going to stay a while, so they rented an apartment in Minneapolis. And Dad took what you call a consultant's job now with an electrical supply outfit to reorganize the operations and whatever. And they would only stay there a month or two. And Mother was looking out the window all the time at this little grocery store that was in the basement of an apartment building across the street. Like twin apartment buildings, and the grocery store was in the other one. A little mom and pop store. And the man that was running the store had a heart attack about 3 weeks after Mother and Dad got there, but Mother was pretty friendly with the woman that was running the place, and she didn't know what she was going to do because her husband couldn't work anymore. He was hospitalized and this heart attack, and well, it was the end, and she couldn't run the store by herself, and didn't know what to do. Mother made a deal to buy the store from her. So they bought the store, which had a little apartment in back of it. Mother and Dad moved into that apartment and ran a store for 5 years. They never knew anything about the business before, but they made a success of it. They made their living out of the store, and they saved, in the 5 years, a total of $25,000 extra over and above their living. And I thought that was great. But by that time, then Dad was getting older, and Mother had a pneumonia attack or whatever, and because she had appendicitis and didn't take care of it, burst and shit. He had all kind of problems there for a week or two, and so they sold the store. They sold the store for just what they bought it for, got their money out, bought a new Mercury, and started to drive down. They were going to move to Florida then, so they moved on to inspect the area, drove all around Florida, and finally picked Safety Harbor to settle in. They spent a year driving down the Atlantic coast and up the Gulf Coast before they selected Safety Harbor, where they retired. And they got along fine there, as long as Mother and Dad were both getting Social Security, because according to the standard, the wife, she was getting half of his base, but at that time, when she passed away, of course, that cut the household income by 1/3, and Dad couldn't make it anymore. So Jerry and I went together and subsidized him for the next 8 years or so, after he ran out of money. Because even when they were both living, they paid their current living expenses, but they had to dig into their reserves semi-annually to pay the taxes and insurance. Otherwise, they were paying their current expenses. When she passed on, they couldn't do any more. They couldn't do that anymore. And of course, when Dad was disabled and had to have live-in help, we made a deal with Harriet to do that, and that didn't work out. That fizzled, but that's another story. That fizzled out, and we had to hire a full-time housekeeper, caretaker, which worked out well for a couple of years, until Dad fell and banged up a vertebrae in his spine. He couldn't walk anymore. He struggled back and forth to bed to a chair and stuff and that, and then he started to go blind with glaucoma, and the gal couldn't do it. But we were very fortunate that this girl was, well, she was not a girl, she was drawing her Social Security on her own, but that's all she had, and she couldn't make a go of it in her own place for that, and she was very happy to take a job, taking care of the house, and cooking, and everything for Dad, as we paid her $100 a month, and that was supplement to her own Social Security, and she moved into the house, and she had her own room and everything, and Dad's car to drive for all the errands and everything else. And so she was very happy. She didn't cut her living expenses down and increased her income. And she worked until Dad could no longer see well enough, and he couldn't navigate anymore, couldn't walk anymore, so we had to put him in a nursing home. Because he refused to come up to Akron to move in with us. He also refused to go to Atlanta to move in with my brother. And my sister had already fallen out in disagreement over their mutual assistance program that we had scheduled in the first place. So she was out of the picture. She wandered off somewhere. In fact, when he died, we didn't even know where she was. But we found out pretty quick.